There is a line at Hogwarts that no one draws for you officially. No professor stands at the front of a classroom on the first day and says, "Here is where the magic stops being magic and starts being something else." No textbook has a chapter titled The Point of No Return. No ministry pamphlet, no Hogwarts, a history footnote, no career guidance session with McGonagall covers the specific moment when a witch or wizard crosses from the person who uses magic into the person who has used that magic, and discovers that the crossing changes the landscape permanently, in both directions. You cannot see from the safe side what the other side looks like, and you cannot return from the other side to not knowing what you now know. The forbidden spells are not forbidden because they are difficult. Most of them are not technically among the most complex magic a trained witch or wizard can perform. The killing curse requires no elaborate wand movement. Sectum Sempra is not a NEWT level incantation. The magic itself, in most cases, is almost insultingly simple compared to the transfiguration you mastered in third year or the potions work that kept you in the dungeon until midnight. They are forbidden because of what they require from the person casting them. Not skill, not power, something older and more structural than either. Something that lives in the part of you that existed before you ever held a wand, in the part that knows, without being taught, the difference between what you are capable of and what you should do. The forbidden spells reach into that part. They use it. And when they're done, they leave a mark there that no healing spell touches and no amount of time fully erases. You are going to use all 7. Not because you are a dark wizard. Not because you chose this path deliberately, mapped it out. Decided one morning that you would work your way through the ministry's list of prohibited magic. You are going to use all 7 because circumstances are a more powerful teacher than intention, and because the wizarding world, for all its rules, all its ministry decrees, all its carefully maintained categories of acceptable and unacceptable, has a way of placing people in moments where the theoretical distance between themselves and the forbidden suddenly collapses. Each spell will teach you something about magic, about the world, about the specific architecture of who you are when the situation removes the option of being anyone else. The first 6 will change you in ways you can track, can name, can carry with some degree of conscious awareness. The 7th will mark you in a way that does all of that and one thing more, something that has no official name in any magical text, that the ministry's classification system has no category for, that the Hogwarts curriculum never addresses, because addressing it would require admitting that some knowledge, once acquired, restructures the person who holds it at a level deeper than memory or skill or conscious identity. You will understand what that means when you get there. For now, the first spell. Part 1, Sectum Sempra. You find it in a textbook that isn't a textbook. The Half-Blood Prince's copy of Advanced Potion Making, annotated, corrected, improved in margins dense with handwriting that belongs to someone who understood magic the way engineers understand structures, from the inside out, with the particular intimacy of someone who didn't just learn spells, but made them. You have been using the annotations for weeks. The potion's results speak for themselves. Sectum Sempra, the margin reads, for enemies. You practice the incantation quietly. Not on anyone, just the shape of it, the wand movement, the feel of it in your mouth. It feels like nothing, like any other spell in any other lesson. This is the first thing it teaches you. Forbidden magic doesn't announce itself in the learning. It announces itself in the using. The moment comes in a bathroom, of all places. Draco Malfoy, a mirror, something on his face that looks like grief, which surprises you enough that you hesitate half a second too long, and then the spell leaves your wand before you have finished deciding to cast it. What happens next takes 4 seconds and will take years to fully process. The spell does exactly what it was designed to do. You watch this happen. You watch the consequence of something you used without understanding, and the watching is its own education, more visceral, more permanent than any defense against the dark arts lesson ever delivered in a classroom. Snape reverses the damage. You stand in the corridor afterwards, and your hands are steady, which somehow feels worse than if they weren't. You use something you didn't understand. The understanding arrived after. This will happen again. Part 2. Legilimens. The first time you enter someone's mind without permission, you tell yourself it's necessary. This is the justification that precedes every subsequent one, necessary, which is a word that does a great deal of work in the moral vocabulary of people who have decided to do something they cannot fully defend. Necessary because the situation required it, because the information was critical, because the alternative was worse, because you didn't have time for the alternative. The spell itself is simple. The ministry doesn't classify it as an unforgivable, a legal distinction that feels increasingly technical the moment you actually use it. What legilimens does is not simple. It opens a door in another person's mind that they did not unlock, and you walk through it. And what you find on the other side is not information arranged for your convenience, but the actual interior of another human being, chaotic, associative, layered with things that were never meant to be seen by anyone outside the skull that contains them. You see something you were not looking for. A memory, old, private, belonging to a part of the person that has nothing to do with why you cast a spell. You see it completely and cannot unsee it, and they will never know you saw it, and this, more than the invasion itself, is what stays. You found what you needed. You also found what you had no right to. The spell doesn't distinguish between the two. Neither, you discover, do you not in the moment, not when the moment requires speed and the information is there and the boundary between necessary access and violation is a line drawn in a language the spell doesn't speak. You close the connection. You have the information. You also have someone else's private grief, living in your memory now, uninvited and permanent. Part 3. Fiendfire. The room of requirement is on fire, and the fire is thinking. This is the detail that no description of fiendfire fully prepares you for. Not the heat, not the scale, not the speed at which it moves through the room, consuming everything it touches. The detail is the thinking. The way it moves is not the way fire moves. Fire is indifferent. Fire spreads along available fuel by the logic of chemistry and physics, and has no preference for what it burns. Fiendfire has preferences. Fiendfire chooses. It shapes itself. Serpents, chimeras, dragons, forms assembled from pure destructive intention. And it tracks. It follows. It wants. You understand in the first 10 seconds that you cannot control it. This is not a failure of skill. This is the nature of the spell. The thing that makes it forbidden is not its power, but its fundamental incompatibility with human control. You conjured something that exists outside the boundary of what a human caster can govern. And it is now operating by its own logic in a room you are also in, and the gap between those two facts is the distance between you and the door. You get out. Not cleanly, not without cost, not without something being lost in the room behind you that cannot be recovered, but out. What Fiendfire teaches you is the lesson that none of the other spells have delivered this directly. There is magic that exceeds the person who casts it. Power that a human can release but not contain. And the releasing, the moment of casting, feels identical to every other spell you've ever cast. Same wand, same intention, same you. The difference is only visible after. When the fire is still burning and you are outside it and the door is closed and there is nothing left to do but understand what you did. Part 4. Imperio. The unforgivables begin here. And the first thing you notice is the silence. Not external silence. The room has its sounds, its context, its reason for what is about to happen. The silence is internal. The particular quiet of a moment before something irreversible. When the body seems to understand what the mind is still negotiating. You have heard Avada Kedavra described, Cruciatus described, but Imperio, the one that looks from the outside like the least violent of the three, was never described to you in a way that anticipated what it would feel like to be the one casting it. The spell leaves your wand and reaches the person across from you, and what happens to their face is the most disturbing thing you have seen in a long sequence of disturbing things. The tension goes. Not the tension of fear or resistance, all tension. The musculature of a human face in its natural state carries the accumulated weight of consciousness, of ongoing internal experience, of the constant low-level effort of being a person with a person's concerns. All of that leaves. What remains is a face that is present without being inhabited. You give an instruction. It is followed immediately, completely, without question. You understand now why the ministry made this unforgivable. Not because of what it does to the body is unharmed. Because of what it does to the concept of a person. You have temporarily made someone into an instrument, and the making was easy, which is the worst part. Easier than most magic you practice daily. The barrier between a person and an object, a barrier you assumed was fundamental, structural, protected by something deeper than law, turned out to be one incantation wide. You release the spell. They blink, come back into their face, slowly. You do not tell them what you did. This is also a choice. You will carry both of them. Part 5, Cruciatus. You learn something about yourself that you would have preferred not to know. The spell requires, this is documented. This is what Bellatrix told Harry in the Department of Mysteries with the specific authority of someone who has spent years on both sides of it. Genuine desire to cause pain. Not performance of desire. Not acted intention. The actual thing, the real internal state of wanting the person in front of you to suffer, held clearly and deliberately in the mind at the moment of casting. The magic reads the caster. It will not function on pretense. You cast it. It functions. This is the information you would have preferred not to have. You have told yourself many things across the years about who you are, about the line between necessity and choice, about what circumstances can ask of a person, about the difference between what you are capable of and what you are. Cruciatus removes the gap between those categories with a precision that no self-examination ever achieved. The spell asked for genuine intent. Your intent was genuine. The spell worked. What the person in front of you experiences lasts 4 seconds. What you experience is longer. The specific duration of understanding something about yourself that cannot be argued with because the evidence was produced by your own magic, by the part of you that the spell accessed and found sufficient. You did not enjoy it. This is real and it matters, and you hold it carefully. But you did not lack the capacity for it. And the distance between did not enjoy and was not capable of turns out to be the most important distance you have ever had to measure. Part 6, the Horcrux. This is not a spell in the way the others were spells. There is no single incantation, or rather, the incantation is the least of it, the technical surface of an act that operates primarily at a level beneath technique. What a Horcrux requires is a murder. Not as a component, not as a preparatory step, as the mechanism. The soul fractures at the moment of deliberate killing, and the fragment that splits away can be anchored to an object if the caster acts immediately, if the intention is prepared, if the magical knowledge is in place. The knowledge is not difficult to find for someone willing to look in the right places. You do not make a Horcrux, but you stand in the place where one was made. You hold the object. You feel what the object contains. You are in contact with a fragment of a human soul that was separated from its source by an act of deliberate violence and sealed into this vessel by magic that has no ethical framework, no category of acceptable use, no version that doesn't require you to have killed someone in cold blood first. What you feel through the object is not the person. It is the part of the person that survived the fracturing. And what survives, you understand, is not the best of them. The soul does not split evenly. What gets anchored to the object is whatever was most aligned with the act of splitting, whatever in the person was most capable of the killing that made the Horcrux possible. You put the object down. Your hands are not shaking. You think about what that means for longer than is comfortable. Part 7, Avada Kedavra. There is no sound after. This is the detail that stays, not the green light, not the speed of it, not the specific quality of the silence that falls in the half-second between the spell leaving your wand and what comes next. The silence after. The particular acoustic quality of a room from which something has been permanently removed. You have been in rooms where people were injured, where people were unconscious, where people were in states that looked like death and were not. This is different. The room knows the difference. You know the difference. The difference does not require explanation or confirmation or the testimony of anyone else present. You understand now what Avada Kedavra actually is, not a weapon, not a spell in the operational sense of the other six. It is a statement, an irreversible declaration that this person's continued existence was incompatible with something you valued more than their life. The magic simply executes the statement. The statement was yours. The mark it leaves is not visible. No healer would find it. No magical scan would detect it. No ministry record would note it as a change in your status or classification. But you are different now from the person who walked into this moment, and the difference is not recoverable. And you know this with the specific clarity of someone who has just crossed a threshold that only exists in one direction. You have used all seven. Sectum Semper taught you that consequences outlast intentions. Legilimens taught you that access is its own violation. Fiend Fire taught you that some power exceeds the person who releases it. Imperio taught you what a person looks like when personhood is suspended. Cruciatus taught you what you are capable of wanting. The Horcrux taught you what survives when the soul is treated as divisible. And this, the last one, taught you the only thing left to learn. That the mark the seventh spell leaves is not on your wand record. It is on the part of you that existed before the first spell, before the first crossing, before the first moment circumstances collapsed the distance between who you were and what you were capable of. That part is still there, smaller than it was, aware of everything that happened, saying nothing, waiting to see what you do next.